Hi there. Today I'm going to be watching Twin Peaks. I'm doing a rewatch and sort of recapping as I go, prepare myself for the new series in 2017. And I am currently on to season 2. On the DVD it says that it's episode 9, but it's actually episode 2 of season 2. So the episode also has a title of Coma. And it was directed by David Lynch, and it was written by Harley Payden, who has previously written a couple of episodes in season 1, Rest in Pain and Realization Time. So Agent Cooper and Albert are having a discussion, and I'm sorry if you can hear that wind. It's very windy. And he starts out by talking about Buddhist traditions. It's very interesting, and it's obviously the conversation of someone deeply motivated by spiritual needs and thoughts. And of course, I'm not sure why he's telling this to Albert, because you would think that of all people that Cooper would know that Albert would be the least interested to hear this kind of conversation. I love Albert's reactions. He's sort of like a sulky teenager who has these brilliant comebacks. I like that this scene, without that barbershop quartet in the background, this would be similar to a lot of scenes we see in other TV shows, but obviously, you know, all these elements to the scene make it somewhat different and unique. Cooper is pretty blasé about discussing his methods of investigation with Albert. Whether that comes from a position of personal power or whether that is a professional privilege that he has, I'm not really sure. Maybe it's both. But he seems perfectly at ease with telling Albert that this is how it is regarding Bob. Albert and Cooper discuss the fact that Jacques' killer seemed to have prepared in advance for this and took precautions not to be identified by identifiable means at this particular time era. Obviously, they still went by things like blood types and fingerprints back in this time era. They didn't go by DNA or anything like that then.
I believe it's customary to ask after the health of one recently plugged 3 times.
I just love Albert. He's so hilariously funny, and he is what he is. He has little time for sentimentality and for small talk, it seems.
Senior Drool Cup has
Senior Drool Cup. That's what everybody calls the room service guy. Okay, so we get the first introduction to Wyndham Earl at the beginning of this second season. Obviously, you get the sense that the Laura Palmer murder mystery is going to wrap up soon, and that because of this, new kind of storylines and you know, mysteries are going to have to be brought in, and you get a sense straight away that because it's connected to Cooper's past, that this is going to be a really important storyline. Likewise, when we see Donna, this is also a new storyline, her visiting Harold. Harold has agoraphobia, it looks like, or perhaps some kind of social phobia. And he doesn't appear to have left his home in quite some time. The fact that Donna has taken on Laura's role from the Meals on Wheels service, it does say to me that she's still sort of wanting to get into the Laura thing. She wants to be sort of like Laura, because she thinks that perhaps Laura's life was more exciting or more worthy than hers. The attention that Laura gets after her death, of course, would make any teenager think that. So we get to see this grandmother and grandson, who are very strange characters, and the scene doesn't seem to make that much sense. It seems to be in symbol almost, and I think that in terms of how it's interpreted, it's a personal thing to some extent. Obviously the grandmother and the grandson seem to have some kind of magical powers. Donna seems to think that it's a magic trick rather than supernatural powers, and clearly the grandmother explains it away as such, but that would actually be quite a difficult magic trick. I'm sorry about the banging there. And we get this really strange reaction from the grandmother and the grandson. The grandson almost looks like he has more power in the relationship, because he gives her this weird look after Donna asks if she knew Laura, and she looks like she's lying and says no, I didn't know her at all. And the grandson kind of glares at her as if to say, keep your mouth shut, sort of thing. It's a very weird dynamic, and one that's difficult to understand. I think there are many slants you could put on this as to what it means, as to who these people are, and they give each other a sort of knowing look once Donna leaves, as if they, after pointing her towards Harold, they almost sort of propel her towards Harold by saying what they said, and then they give each other like a look as if to say, yeah, we've done the right thing there by making Donna go and meet Harold. It's almost like they know that something is going to happen in advance, and obviously having seen the series before myself, the line in French that the little boy says is obviously very significant in terms of, do these people or beings or whatever they are have pre-knowledge of the future? And when the grandson says as well, she seemed like a very nice girl, it's almost like a little bit of that's a nice specimen or that's a nice cow ready to go to the slaughterhouse or something like that. It's not quite genuine in terms of I don't feel it's very genuine from a human perspective. I don't think he really means that. That's just a sense, perhaps because, you know, of the way that the scene is staged and the eerie music behind, you just get the sense that that's not quite right. This scene with Cooper and Harry going in to see Ronette, there is something very Lynchian about this particular scene, how long it is, the kind of the humour of the scene, the awkwardness of it. It's one of these things that Lynch seems to do, like take a real life situation and take away the typical familiar, the way things that are typically screened in Hollywood. He dismantles that almost. So Ronette has this dramatic reaction to seeing the poster of Bob, and again in that scene we go from a complete comedy to a moment of horror, which is very obviously, that has a huge effect on any viewer. To see a scene like that, it's something that you just don't expect. Jerry's eating food again and the two brothers are sort of talking about which of the ledgers to destroy. It's clear they have been partners in crime for a long time, even though that these characters are doing something very bad. You still can't help but, I personally anyways, still can't help but like them. I don't know what it is. They're charming, especially Jerry. I like the way Jerry says, Ben, where are those hickory sticks? Because he says it like, the way he delivers that line is 1950s-esque, if you've ever watched old movies. It has that sort of innocence and purity of the way people talk to each other back then. Almost as if he's tapping into his childhood when he says that. And he's trying to stick up a poster in the diner, and clearly he has had some troubles. Okay, the log lady has this distinctive way of speaking. It's interesting that she asks the Major if he can hear the log, because why would she think that anyone else could hear the log but her? I don't think that's something she generally asks a lot of people, but clearly when she says what the log has told her, the Major looks as if he understands that message. It's almost like, kind of like when a spiritualist or someone like that, or a seance person comes and says that they are talking from the grave. That's what the log is kind of like, sort of a psychic log. Get this scene with Hank in the sheriff's office. I feel that it's sort of a way to expand on Harry's character a little and to show him in his role, because as soon as, the first episode, Cooper arrived in town and we didn't really get to see how the sheriff ran his office, how the sheriff ran the town. But I think this scene allows you to see that, to get to know a bit of his history, personal history, and to see how he is managing the sheriff's work. Okay, so Ben relays the information that Audrey is missing. Okay, so we see Lillian's reaction to the poster of Bob, which he sees in Ben's office, and he looks completely shocked and horrified. And he says that he remembers Bob from when he was a boy, and says that he lived next door when he was a boy, which would kind of be impossible unless Bob hadn't aged at all, or unless it was Bob's father. But assuming there was only one Bob and Bob does not have a father that looks exactly like him, we have to assume that Bob, the entity, is incapable of aging, or has somehow suspended his age. Leo is in the hospital, and Shelley, she looks pretty upset. Regardless of what he's done to her, she still looks quite concerned about him, and she also asks, is he a vegetable? I don't know if that was politically correct back then to just use that. I know that the term was used in my own life as if that was an acceptable thing to say, which I don't think it is today, so I'm not sure if it was in, publicly back then, if that term was used like that. But obviously I think that today that kind of expression, is he a vegetable, would not go down too well. But I think perhaps it maybe says something about Shelley's education as well. Okay, so we see Audrey still at One-Eyed Jack's, and she has very little clothing on. She seems to be still finding her way around, trying to manipulate matters so she stays on course as to what she's there for. And she sees that, is it Mr. Battis, the Emery from the store, from the retail outlet, is there, and she takes her opportunity to manipulate the situation. Audrey comes across as someone who fights through her fears and vulnerabilities and is able to find some level of power inside herself to be able to do things that are difficult for her, which I respect the character for. And then Emery says, Laura always got her way, just like you. Audrey, which is it's a bit of a frightening thing to hear anybody say, because nobody wants Audrey to end up the same way as Laura. But we know about what we've heard about Laura is that her personality type was a little bit similar to Audrey's, that she could play with people and manipulate people, and yet there was a side to her that was a little more vulnerable as well. So it's almost like a warning to Audrey. She has to be careful that she doesn't end up like Laura. So Bobby and Shelley think they are working out the perfect plan to have a perfect life and to basically use Leo as a cash cow. After all, Bobby thinks it's what Shelley deserves after having gone through so much shit with him, and because they think that there is little hope of recovery, I think they think, why not use him in this manner? So Cooper talks to Diane again on his, what is that machine, tape recorder? Dictaphone, maybe. And he discusses that Wyndham Earl's disappearance is very troubling to him. Again, that's another hint at what's to come, foreshadowing of a storyline that is going to be very troublesome to Cooper. Okay, so it's surprising to see the Major turn up at Cooper's hotel room, and he says he has a message, which is obviously what he was thinking when Margaret, the log lady, told him that the log said pass on the message. And he discusses his work of maintenance of deep space communication towers and things like that. Gets a little X-Filesy now, I think. I always thought that about the series. As soon as the Major starts talking about space and aliens and stuff like that, it does feel very much like the X-Files. He admits that it hurts him sometimes to have to be so secret about his job, and this explains why he has conversations like he did in the last episode with Bobby. So he shows Cooper this strange thing. Obviously, this means that the series is taking another direction, because I mean, until now I don't think we've had anything but think that the spiritual nature of Bob originated anywhere but from Earth. And now with the Major saying these things about space communications, you get to thinking, are these beings from another galaxy, from another planet? Okay, so we see James, Madeline and Donna singing Just You, is it? I think that's Just You. This is what downtime looked like in the 1990s. It actually did. Just you and I. Kids did this sort of thing in the 90s, and I know that some people might think this is a cheesy scene with James and the girls singing, but I think it's sweet, and I think it has an element of a teen drama about it. You know, it could almost be like Beverly Hills 90210. So Donna looks pretty sultry in this scene, as does Madeline. She looks like she has a less studious look, and she looks more relaxed, and as if she's wearing a bit more makeup. And obviously she gives these sly looks towards James, and it looks the same as the look that Donna is giving him. So you know straight away that there is something there. And when she's looking at James, there is something very Laura-esque about the way she looks, something in her eyes. It's very similar to how Laura looked at James. Obviously it's the same actress, but I mean in terms of how she feels about James is similar to how Laura felt, I think. Donna gets really upset because she realizes this, and it's probably the same how she felt when she saw Laura and James together as well. Kind of like the third wheel, you know? And it's clear that she thinks that she has to use her sexuality to engage James, because that's the first thing she does. She grabs him and kisses him and is very passionate, and I don't know if that says something about her self-esteem, whether she thinks her character isn't exciting enough to interest James, but the fact that she thinks she has to be overtly sexual to interest James is kind of sad. And of course Madeline looks very sad about things as well. She is almost in this trance-like situation when she sees Bob. She has this vision of Bob coming towards her, and this is one of the scariest moments of Twin Peaks, because we have this, you know, this normal suburban type room, floral couch with not a cushion, out of place, and then this weird scruffy guy turns up and looks like a murderous biker who climbs over the seat like it's almost like a statement of nothing can get in my way. Conventionality isn't something that affects me in any way. The fact that he runs straight down into the camera lens is feels very threatening. Sorry, my camera battery just ran out, so I've just changed to a different machine. And we see Cooper have this strange dream with the owl, figure of the owl transposed against Bob's face, and Bob kind of looking excited about evil. And it obviously ends with this phone call from Audrey, and Audrey's been caught. So that's the end of the episode. I liked that episode. I thought it was a good one. And I like that we are getting some new threads of storylines. Obviously with Harold and with Windmill just being mentioned is sort of like easing us in. Major Briggs's references to space messages is a little bit weird, but you know, Twin Peaks had the potential to go there, and it has, so that's something to think about, I think, in regards to what Bob is, who Bob is, where he is from. And also we get this thing that we have to think about with Leland and how he could possibly have known Bob as a child. It's very, very weird. At the same time, there is lots of relationship dramas that are going on that are very interesting and compelling to watch. I really like the James, Donna and Madeline situation, and I think that it's not outside the realm of plausibility that James would actually fall in love with Madeline or feel some kind of attraction towards her, given that she is identical to Laura, aside from her hair colour. A lot of relationships are built on attraction, physical attraction, so also the fact that he is in close proximity to Madeline all the time since they are trying to figure out what happened to Laura. I don't think it's... I think that the storyline is something that was gearing up in previous episodes. Yeah, so it was a good episode, and that's it really. If you want to comment below and tell me what you thought of this episode, you're very welcome to. And you can subscribe if you like to my channel. I'll probably be watching Twin Peaks again the same time next week, episode 10. So I will see you again then if you'd like to join me for that. Okay, goodbye.